Most designers think that if you want to be a better designer, you need to add something, do a little cool new effect, a cool new trend. But the truth is, all you need to do to go from an average designer to a really good designer is to avoid some critical mistakes. And in this video, we're going to cover the 4 mistakes that are going to make you a better designer if you avoid them. Let's rock and roll. Hey design friends, what is up? My name is Ron Segal. Welcome to Flux, where we cover how you can become a better designer and then make a living as a designer doing some awesome work. And today, this is going to be so simple, yet going to make you better designer no matter what you design. If you design websites, brands, apps, whatever, because we're going to cover some very core fundamentals of design that I see so many people make so many mistakes. Let's dive right into it. So the first mistake that I see, imagine that you're designing some, let's say this is a website or something. You've got the content here, but I see so many people make spacing mistakes. And spacing mistakes can come in all different kinds of form. First of all, a lot of people would put their content like text and buttons right next to the edge of the screen. And that just makes it so hard for us to read, and it also looks like a mistake. So the first thing you want to do is you want to move away your content from the edges, right? You don't want things to be right next to the edges. And usually you also want to have kind of like usually equal spacing from, depending on, the edges of the screen, but you want to maintain equal spacing. And equal spacing can be also between the different elements. Now note what we have here. We have a typographic element like a headline that has such a huge space between the lines itself that it looks as if there are actually 3 elements here, right? Hats for is element number 1, awesome women. Element number 2, and this is completely, it looks like 3 different elements. It doesn't look like this headline is 1 element. And the way that we group things together in design is by spacing. So if there's too much space, they look like different things. So here, we can even tighten them up all the way like this, and here maybe, of course, we also want to create a little bit of spacing between the text and the character and the person here. It also makes it a little bit more readable. Here I'm going to tighten the text as well. So note how much better it looks with better spacing. And of course, I'd want to keep the button here probably equally spaced. Now there's a reason, you see, when I'm moving this, Figma tells me there's 30 pixels between this element and that element. There's a reason it tells me that, because it encourages me, right, to have equal spacing between the different elements. And now you can see this looks so much better now that we have better spacing. Maybe I can even tighten up the spacing a little bit more, but you can see that it looks so much better. So be mindful of edges when you're spacing. Be mindful of equal spacing between the elements and the edge, and spacing between the type elements. All right, let's move to the second design mistake. And of course, make sure you like this video for more design videos just like this. The next one is such a common mistake, and that is contrast mistakes. People put elements on top of imagery, on top of backgrounds, and it's just so hard to read the context because we have here dark photo in the background and then dark text on top of it. This might look silly to you, but so many people make this mistake. So let's go ahead and fix this. The first thing that we'd probably do is, if we have a dark image, we want to go with a light text. So let me first of all make these, the text white. That's already going to create more contrast. And this, I don't know if I would make this white. Let's actually, if there's a little bit of orange here, let's actually go with maybe like an orange button that's going to stand out. Yeah, that looks way better. Now, because we have, so first of all, we already improved readability, right? It's still better. But because this is a busy image in the background, there's still it's still a little bit hard to read. Now there's multiple ways to go about this, right? I can kind of blur the image in the background so there's less details and it's more readable. I'm gonna go with the super easy solution, which is basically going to add kind of a gradient. So let me just turn this into linear gradient, and let's go actually from black, from black to nothing, right? But to dark nothing, right? Okay, and then we can have it from this side to this side. And well, we can do something like this, all right? And let's bring this to the background. And now you can see that by just adding this element, now you don't really notice it, right? Let me go ahead and toggle this off and on, but you can see how this very quickly, without ruining the readability of the image, we can still see the core important things of the image, but we're basically just hiding some of the boring content here and creating more readability for the text itself. So this now looks so much better, and you got to remember having contrast between type elements and the background on which they're on, whether it's image or just a color. Always be sure that you have contrast. Also, contrast is important for accessibility, right? Having people, even things that for us might look readable, like gray text on white background, you want to have, if you want to kind of pass the accessibility bar, you have to have a ratio of contrast. We're not going to go into that right now, but you want to have enough contrast in your designs. All right, the next topic that I want to talk about is also such a common mistake, and that is aligning elements. A lot of people, you would see websites where you would have like the navigation is one side, the headlines is somewhere, and the content itself, each of them has a different width. They're not aligned to one another. And you would notice if you look at well-designed images, and also if you look at your design software, you have here a layout grid, right? And the super common one is 12-column grid. If we'll show this, there is a reason why people put grid, because it allows us to organize elements so that they align to one another. So let's do this. Let's put this on the grid and make sure that it's not too wide. And let's put this. When elements are aligned to one another, that makes the space much more organized. So we are not kind of like overwhelmed, right? If you look at this right now, even if we hide the grids, immediately you see that this is so much more organized and easy to read and easy to skim. And of course, one thing that we're using, one reason that we're using these grids besides aligning things, is we need a container to make sure that, especially on websites, content is contained in the center of the screen, because when it's too wide, people start looking left and right, and it's not really easy to consume the content. So you want to make sure you have some kind of a container, everything is aligned within it, and you can use, of course, the grid to, even we have 12 columns here, we can use this to even maybe have 2 columns. Well, it's too much. It's too big, the example that I've created here, but we could have used this to even sub-align the elements within it. Right now, it doesn't look very well. Anyway, you want to make sure you're using a grid and elements on your design are aligned no matter what you do. The last mistake that I want to cover with you, and this is, again, the number one mistake that I'm seeing all over in all designs, is hierarchies mistakes. And basically what this means is we're trying to make everything super, super big and in your face, because I don't know, if the client said this is super important and I want them to see this, I want them to read the title, I want them to read what he's doing, I want them to know the address. Everything is so important. And the effect is, when everything is so important, when everything is big and bold and in our face, that's just overwhelming. Like when everything is important, actually nothing is important. And I'm not guiding my visitor or my user to look at a specific things. And when I'm showing them too many things, they're just overwhelmed. So what you want to do with creating clear hierarchies is to guide them from, here's the first thing that you should look at, here's the second thing that you should look at, and here's the third thing. And the way that you do this mostly is by size, or by creating visual kind of like a bunch of color spaces. So let's try to do this here. First of all, of course, we want them to look at the title and probably here second. And even though this is, let's say this is font size of 80 and this is 60 and this is 50, you might say this is the biggest and this is the second biggest, but they almost look the same, right? So let's make the contrast between the sizes more apparent, right? So let's do something like maybe, let's make this bigger, actually 95. And again, we'll take care of spacing here. So maybe this is the Orlando office, and this is, let's make this tighter here as well. We can probably make something like this. And these, we need to make them way, way smaller, right? So we can do something like this, like 30. Okay, and these, we can make them way smaller as well. Of course, we'll need to tighten up the spacing here. And now we have a very, very clear path to look at, right? This is, by the way, this is bold, and maybe we don't need this to be semi-bold. Maybe we need this, the title, to be bold because, yeah. All right, so now it's very, very clear where to look at. Now we know that the first thing, we're looking at this, and we kind of have a very, very clear flow from big things that are dark and take a lot of visual space, and then go down. And also look how well organized it looks. Instead of everything is big, all the space is taken. We have way more space here that we can use to group elements together. As we said earlier, space is used for grouping, and we can create a much easier layout to consume the content one by one and see this in a much more clear and present way. So big is not always best. You want to make things smaller if they are less important. All right, so these were the 4 core design mistakes. I see these mistakes all the time when I'm reviewing your work, when I'm reviewing portfolios. These are so common. And again, you don't have to be a design genius. You don't have to know fancy software or tips and tricks and all kinds of hacks to make your design better. All you have to do is avoid these very, very core things that you can use by just moving things around and by sizing them to the right size and picking the right colors, and you'll have way better designs. I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments below which is your most common mistakes, and we'll try to make 4 videos to help you avoid these mistakes and become a better designer. And I will see you on the next video. Peace out.